What these trail cameras captured will haunt you forever. True stories. Have you ever woken up at 3 in the morning with that feeling? That absolute certainty that someone is watching you? You know you locked all the doors. You know you're alone in the house. But even so, something isn't right. Your heart races. You lie completely still under the covers, barely breathing, trying to decide whether to open your eyes or not. Now imagine that feeling, but in the woods, alone, miles away from any other person. And there is a camera recording everything. Look, I'm going to tell you something that will make you rethink every trail you've ever hiked, every camping trip you've ever planned. Because what these cameras captured shouldn't exist. It shouldn't be possible. And it definitely shouldn't be happening when no one is looking. My name is Nick, and I spend way too much time thinking about what really happens in the forest when people aren't around. If you're someone who gets fascinated by true stories of disturbing events captured on trail cams, go ahead and hit that subscribe button and leave a like if this video helps you or haunts you. Probably both. Here's the thing, there are millions of trail cameras scattered throughout the forests of the world right at this exact moment. Hunters use them. Wildlife researchers use them. People who just want to document nature. And most of these cameras, they never capture anything other than deer, some bears, maybe a coyote. But some of them capture things that make seasoned park rangers refuse to return to their assigned areas. Things that make the police seal investigations without explanation. Things that make you question everything you thought you knew about what is real. And today I'm going to tell you the story of David Paulides. No, wait. Not that David Paulides. I'm talking about David Hernandez, a 34-year-old park ranger who worked in the Smoky Mountains in Tennessee. A man who had 12 years of experience in the woods. A man who knew those trails better than his own backyard. Until his own trail camera captured something that completely destroyed everything he believed about reality. It's September 2019. David Hernandez is doing his last rounds of the station before winter truly sets in. He's the kind of guy the forest breeds, if you know what I mean. He grew up camping, got a degree in biology, dedicated his entire adult life to protecting these mountains. And David had a side project. He was documenting wildlife patterns using a network of 15 trail cameras that he installed himself with his own funds, scattered across an area of approximately 40 square kilometers of dense forest. High-quality cameras with night vision, motion sensors, batteries that lasted months. Now you might be thinking, Nick, what could an experienced ranger possibly capture that would be so disturbing? And look, I understand the skepticism. I really do. But stick with me here. In the third week of September, David makes his monthly round to collect the SD cards from the cameras. It's a 2-day hike, sleeping in a basic shelter that the Forestry Service maintains in the area. He grabs the cards, swaps them for new ones, checks the batteries. Basic routine. When he gets back to the ranger's office, he plugs the cards into the computer and starts reviewing the footage. Hours and hours of trees swaying in the wind. A black bear passing by. Some foxes. A doe with her fawns. Normal. Absolutely normal. Until camera number 9. Camera 9 was positioned in an area David called Silent Creek. A strange place, he always admitted that. There was something about the quality of the air there. Like sound didn't travel right. But it was an important corridor for wildlife, so it made sense to monitor it. David clicks on the file for camera 9. The first 200 images are normal. And then, he stops, goes back, advances frame by frame. At 3:47 a.m. on the date of September 8th, the camera captures something moving along the trail. At first it looks like a person, but something is wrong. The posture isn't natural. The arms are too long. The way it moves, it's not a normal human walk. David zooms in. This is where it gets really interesting. The figure is wearing what looks like animal pelts, but not like clothes, more like glued to the body, and there is something on its head, some kind of mask or skull. He can't distinguish it clearly because of the graininess of the night image. Okay, David thinks, probably just someone pulling a prank. or some bushcraft enthusiast taking their hobby too far. Then he sees the next image. The figure is looking directly at the camera, as if it knew exactly where it was. And here is what most people don't realize about trail cameras. They are camouflaged. They blend perfectly with the trees. They don't make sound. They don't have a visible flash in infrared mode. There is absolutely no reason for someone to look directly at where one is hidden, unless they know exactly where to look. David feels a chill go up his spine. He continues scrolling through the images. Over the next 6 hours, the camera captures 47 images of this figure. And in each one it is closer, closer, closer. In the last image at 9:23 a.m., the figure is less than a meter from the camera. And David can see details now. Details he wishes he couldn't see. The mask isn't a mask. It is a real human skull with pieces of raw leather stitched onto it. The figure's eyes, the real eyes, are staring through the empty sockets of the skull. And there is something painted on the skull. Symbols. Symbols David doesn't recognize but that make his stomach turn just looking at them. And then, in the next scheduled image, 10 minutes later, the figure is gone. And the camera was turned at a different angle, as if someone had deliberately adjusted it. Now let's be practical for a second. David is a trained professional. He knows he needs to report this. There is someone in the federal forests, possibly disturbed, wearing human remains. That is a federal crime on multiple levels. He takes the images to his supervisor, Marcus Webb, a 30-year veteran of the Forest Service. Marcus looks at the photos. His face goes pale. He prints 3 of the clearest images. Where exactly is this? Marcus asks. David points it out on the map. Marcus shakes his head slowly. Do you know the history of that area? Marcus asks. David doesn't. 1983, Marcus says, his voice low. A group of hikers disappeared in that region. 5 people. Never found. Not even bodies. The search lasted 3 months. Eventually, it was filed as presumed deaths by exposure, but... He pauses. Some of the old rangers used to talk about things they found during the search. Stone circles, markings on trees, and symbols. Symbols like these. He points to the symbols on the skull in the image. David feels his blood run cold. Are you saying this has been happening for 36 years? I'm saying, Marcus replies carefully, that you need to contact the FBI immediately. And you need to get your other cameras out of that area. I don't want you going back there alone. But here's the thing about David. He is methodical, scientific. And right now he has 14 other cameras out there, including 3 within a 5-kilometer radius of Silent Creek. He needs those images. He needs to know if this thing appears on other cameras. He needs to understand the pattern. So David does what any rational person would do. He calls his best friend, another ranger named Tom Fitzgerald, and asks him to accompany him on an emergency recovery of the SD cards. They head out the next morning. 2 experienced men armed with satellite radios and a plan to check in every 2 hours. The thing is, plans never survive contact with, well, whatever was in that forest. David and Tom start early, 6:30 a.m., September 19, 2019. The plan is simple. Direct route to the cameras closest to Silent Creek first, working outward in a spiral pattern. Grab the cards. Get out. Easy. The first 3 cameras show nothing unusual. Normal wildlife. Some images of hikers passing through during the day. Nothing that makes the hairs on your arms stand up. Camera 4 is about 3 kilometers from Silent Creek. When they get there, Tom stops abruptly. Dave, he says, his voice tense. Are you seeing this? Around the tree where the camera is mounted, in a perfect circle approximately 3 meters in diameter, all the ground vegetation is dead. Not wilted. Not in the process of dying. Completely dead. Black. As if it had been burned, but there are no signs of fire. David kneels, touches the vegetation. It crumbles into dust under his fingers. This isn't normal, Tom mutters. This doesn't happen naturally. David removes the SD card with slightly trembling hands. They press on. Cameras 5 and 6. Nothing. But David is getting increasingly uncomfortable. There is something wrong with the silence. In the Smoky Mountains there is always sound. Birds, insects, wind in the trees. But now, as they get closer to Silent Creek, it is getting quieter and quieter, until there is no sound at all. Not even their own footsteps seem to sound right. They reach camera 7 at 11:30, and this is where everything changes. The camera is there, but it is surrounded by offerings. There is no other word for it. Small dead animals carefully arranged in a radial pattern around the tree. Squirrels, rabbits, a raccoon. All recently killed. There is still fresh blood. And in the trees around them, tied with something that looks like sinew, are bones. Human bones. Dozens of them. Hanging like macabre mobiles. Tom vomits. David forces himself to breathe slowly, controlled. "We are leaving," Tom says. "Now, screw the cameras." But David is already looking at the SD card in the camera. Part of him, the scientific part, the part that needs to understand, needs to know what is on that card. He removes it. They turn to leave. And that is when they hear it. A sound, unlike anything either of them has ever heard before. Part guttural, part high-pitched shriek, echoing through the trees in a way that seems to come from all directions at once. They run. Here is what most people don't realize about real visceral panic. You don't think. Your body just moves. Millions of years of evolution take over, and you simply run. David and Tom sprint through the forest, branches whipping their faces, lungs burning. Tom is slightly ahead, following the marked trail they used on the way in. And then Tom stops so abruptly that David almost crashes into him. "What the hell?" David pants. Tom is pointing to the trail ahead. In the soft mud there are footprints. Not normal human footprints. Larger. The toes too long, curved like claws. And there are many of them. Going in both directions. Crossing the trail in patterns that don't make sense. "These weren't here before," Tom whispers. "Dave, these weren't here when we passed 20 minutes ago." That sound again. Closer now. Definitely behind them. Off the trail, David decides. Now. They veer into the dense brush. It's harder, slower, but at least they aren't following a predictable path. David has a compass. He knows what general direction they need to go. For 45 minutes, they move as silently as possible through the woods. The sound follows them but keeps its distance. As if whatever it is toying with them. Like a cat with mice. Then they hear something else. Voices. Real human voices. "Do you hear that?" David whispers. They move toward the voices. It starts to sound like singing? No, not exactly singing. Chanting. Multiple voices in unison, reciting something in a language David doesn't recognize. They crawl to the top of a small ridge and look down into a small clearing. What they see makes Tom grip David's arm so hard it leaves marks. There are 7 people in the clearing. All wearing furs and bones similar to what David saw in the camera images. All wearing human skulls as masks. And they are standing in a circle around something. In the center of the circle is an 8th skull. But this one is on a stake. And it is fresh. Very fresh. There is still tissue attached to it. The figures are chanting and making elaborate gestures with their hands. One of them, the tallest one, is holding something. A knife. A knife that he raises above his head as the chant increases in volume. And that is when David realizes there is a 9th person. Tied up. Alive. Lying in the center of the circle. This person is wearing modern hiking clothes. A North Face backpack is tossed to the side. David pulls out his satellite radio, hands shaking. He needs to report this. No. But if he makes any sound, these people will know they are here. Tom is looking at him, eyes wide, shaking his head violently. "We can't help," he whispers, barely audible. "It's just the 2 of us. There are 7 of them. And that thing that was chasing us, is somewhere out there. David knows Tom is right. Logically, rationally, he knows. But there is a living person down there. A person who is going to die if they don't do something. He makes his decision. David raises his rifle. He isn't a killer. He's never shot at anything other than paper targets and once a bear that was attacking a campsite. But now, Dave, no, Tom whispers desperately. David aims at the tall figure with the knife. His breathing steadies. Training takes over. Exhale. Squeeze. The shot breaks the silence like shattering glass. The tall figure falls. For a moment, just a frozen moment in time, no one moves. The other 6 figures just stand there, staring at their fallen leader. And then they all turn their masked heads directly to where David and Tom are hiding. In perfect unison, as if they were a single mind. Run. David screams that he and Tom charge down the ridge slope, heading toward the tied-up person. If they are going to get involved, they can at least try to save someone. But the figures are fast. Incredibly fast. They move in a way that humans shouldn't move, almost running on all fours for a few seconds, then vertical again. David reaches the tied person first. It's a woman around 30 years old, blindfolded, gag in her mouth. He cuts the bonds with his knife while Tom covers them with his own rifle, firing warning shots. The woman is in shock, unable to stand. David picks her up and throws her over his shoulder. And then, from the forest surrounding the clearing, comes that sound again. But this time there are many of them, answering each other in a terrifying chorus. There's more. Tom yells. There's a lot more. They run. David carries the woman. Tom is shooting behind them, not to hit, just to make noise, to make the things hesitate. Figures flicker between the trees, never fully visible, always in the periphery of vision. And that chanting, it follows them, getting louder, more urgent. David sees a rocky outcrop ahead. There, he shouts. They wedge themselves into a small fissure in the rocks, just big enough for the 3 of them to squeeze in. It is defensible. Only one entrance. Tom stands guard with his rifle while David checks the woman. She is coming to, reality returning to her eyes. She looks at David, then at Tom, then at the rocks around them. How long, she whispers, her voice hoarse. How long did they have me? I don't know, David answers honestly. What is your name? Sarah. Sarah Mitchell. I was hiking alone. 3 days ago? I don't know. They took me at night, when I was sleeping in my tent. David turns on his satellite radio. He dials the Forest Service emergency number. Static. He tries again. More static. It won't work, Sarah says faintly. They have something. Some kind of, I don't know, jammer? I tried my cell phone. Tried everything. Tom is peering out of the crevice. They're out there, he mutters. Just waiting. Watching. And they are. David can see them now. 9. No, 10, 12 figures standing among the trees. Completely motionless. Just watching the fissure in the rocks. The sun is starting to set. Let me tell you something about spending the night in a rock crevice in the Smoky Mountains, knowing there is a cult of psychopaths outside waiting to kill you. Time doesn't work normally. Seconds drag like hours. Hours pass in blurred instants. David, Tom, and Sarah sit huddled in that tiny space as darkness falls. They have 2 flashlights, 3 rifles. Sarah said they stashed her gear, including a gun she was carrying, and the energy bars that were in David and Tom's pockets. And they have the SD cards. Around 8 p.m., when it became clear the figures aren't leaving, David pulls out his laptop. He always carries one on long hikes to immediately back up camera footage. I need to see what's on these cards, he says. Why? Tom asks. What does it matter what's on them? Because, David answers slowly, if we are going to survive until dawn, we need to understand what we are dealing with. He plugs in the first card, the one from camera 4, the one surrounded by dead vegetation. The first images seem normal. Then, dated September 12th, something appears. It's one of the figures. But this time, David can see more clearly. The figure is performing some kind of ritual around the tree, pouring something on the ground, some kind of dark liquid. And then the plants start to die in accelerated time in the images, wilting, turning black, dying completely in less than 10 minutes. What the hell is in that liquid? Tom whispers. David shakes his head. He skips to the next card, camera 7, the one surrounded by offerings. These images are worse, much worse. Dated over several days in September, it shows the figures returning repeatedly, bringing dead animals, arranging them in patterns. And then, they bring something bigger. It's a deer. But it's not dead. It's still alive, struggling against bindings. And then one of the figures, the tallest one, probably the same one David shot, does something with a knife. Sarah turns her head away. "Turn it off," she says. "Please." But David can't. Because what happens next defies explanation. After the deer dies, the figures begin that chant. The same one David and Tom heard in the clearing. And the camera picks up something, moving, in the shadows. Something that isn't human, not animal. Something that causes the camera's infrared light to distort and flicker. And then it is there, in front of the camera. It isn't like the masked figures. This is something else entirely. Tall, maybe 8 feet, with limbs that bend the wrong ways. And the face. The camera can't focus right. As if whatever it is cannot be properly captured on digital video. But David sees enough. As many eyes. More than any creature should have. And a mouth that opens too wide, showing too many teeth. The thing leans down, picks up the dead deer, and then looks directly at the camera. David stops the video, his hands shaking. "What was that?" Tom whispers. "What the fuck was that?" "I don't know," David admits. "But I think these people are worshipping it, feeding it. And I think that's why people disappeared in 1983. That's why they took Sarah." "Are they offering people to that thing?" Sarah asks, her voice small. Before David can answer, Tom grabs his arm. "They're moving," he whispers. The figures outside, who had been standing still the whole time, are now slowly approaching the crevice. And they are chanting. That horrible guttural sound that makes David's teeth vibrate in his head. Tom raises his rifle. If one of them tries to come in, he is cut off by the sound they made all night, that inhuman shriek. But now it is right outside the crevice, just a few meters away. And then something appears at the entrance. It is not one of the masked figures. It is the thing from the camera. At this distance, even in the dim light of the flashlights, David can see everything. And he wishes he couldn't. The creature is bipedal, sort of, but the proportions are completely wrong. The arms reach the ground. The legs bend backward like a bird's. And the skin, if it is skin, looks moist, translucent in some places, showing what could be muscle or organs underneath. But the face, oh God, the face, those eyes, David counts 11 of them in asymmetrical rows, all focus on him simultaneously. And when the mouth opens, the smell that comes out, rotting meat, sulfur, and something sweet that makes the stomach churn. Tom fires. The bullet hits the creature in what should be the chest. It sways slightly, then looks at the wound with what can only be curiosity. The wound closes. Literally heals before their eyes in seconds. Tom fires again. And again. Emptying his clip. The creature just stands there. Then it makes a sound, something between a laugh and that shriek, and retreats. The masked figures move forward, completely blocking the entrance now. And the chanting increases in volume, getting more urgent. "They are trying to make it come in," Sarah says suddenly. The chanting. It's like instructions, commands. "How do you know?" David asks. "Because when they had me, I could feel it. Not from far away. But when they started singing, I could feel it paying attention. Like the chants were directing it. So if we stop the chanting," David starts. "Maybe it loses interest," Sarah finishes. "Maybe. Tom is reloading. And how the hell do we do that? David looks at the masked figures blocking the entrance. Looks at his rifle. Does the math. You two stay behind me, he says. When I start shooting, you run. Don't look back. Don't stop. You run until you hit the main trail, then head south. There is a ranger station about 15 kilometers away. Stay on the marked trail, keep to the open areas. Dave, no, Tom says. We aren't doing that. We aren't leaving you here. You aren't listening to me, David says, his voice calm. I'm not asking you. I'm telling you. You're going to run. And I'm going to make those sons of bitches stop singing long enough for you to escape. He checks his rifle one last time. On 3. Dave, Sarah begins. 1. The creature is moving again, getting closer to the entrance. 2. The masked figures are reaching in, starting to squeeze through the opening. 3. David opens fire. He isn't aiming to kill, he is aiming at faces, masks, anything to break the chant, to cause chaos. The figures scream, recoil, trip over each other. Tom and Sarah burst through the entrance, running past the confused figures. David covers them, shooting methodically, forcing the figures to seek cover. He can see them disappear into the darkness. Good. Then his clip runs empty. He reaches for the next one, but his hands are shaking with adrenaline and he drops it. The clip hits the rocks, bounces out of reach. The figures realize it. They move forward again. And the creature, that thing, it is there again. At the entrance. Looking at him with all those eyes. David retreats into the crevice as far as he can go. His hand finds his satellite radio. Still static, but he turns it on anyway, hopes that someone, somewhere, might pick up some fragment of a signal. This is Ranger David Hernandez, he says, his voice surprisingly steady. Coordinates 35.6532 north, 83.5070 west. Silent Creek, Smoky Mountains. If anyone is hearing this, there is a cult operating in this area. Disappearances, rituals, and something else. Something I can't explain. The creature is meters away now. All those eyes fixed on him. My name is David Hernandez. I am 34 years old. And if you find this radio, at least you'll know I tried. He releases the button, closes his eyes, and waits. But the pain doesn't come. Slowly David opens his eyes. The creature is still there. But it isn't moving. It's just watching. As if it were waiting for something. The masked figures have also stopped. Silent now. No chanting. And David realizes, without the chanting, without the instructions, the thing doesn't know what to do. It isn't hunting. It is being commanded. Like a dog waiting for orders from its master. You need it, David whispers. You can't control it alone. You need the ritual. The ceremony. One of the figures takes a step forward. Slowly removes the skull mask. Underneath is a man. Around 60 years old. Face marked by weather and exposure. But it is the eyes that make David shudder, completely void of anything that could be called humanity. Smart, the man says, his voice raspy from disuse. Smarter than the others. They just screamed. What are you? David asks. Guardians, the man replies. My family has guarded this forest for 200 years, keeping it fed, keeping it satisfied, so that it does not go beyond these mountains. You are murdering people. I am saving millions. The man steps closer. You don't understand. It is ancient. It was here before the Cherokee, before any human, and it has hunger, always hunger. If we do not feed it here, contained, it will seek food elsewhere. That is madness. It is survival. The man looks at the creature with something akin to reverence. Your friend and the woman won't get far. We have others out there. But you showed courage. Intelligence. We could use someone like you. Never. The man sighs. Pity. He puts the mask back on. Looks at the others. They begin to chant again. The creature moves forward. David closes his eyes. FBI Special Agent Marcus Chin is standing in the clearing where it all happened. It is December now. Snow covers the ground, clean and white and innocent. They found David's radio. They found evidence of a struggle. They found the trail cameras, all except number 9, which had vanished completely. They found Sarah Mitchell and Tom Fitzgerald. Alive. Traumatized but alive. They had managed to reach the main trail. Ran for hours. Reached the ranger station at dawn. The FBI raided the area with 50 agents. They found the ritual sites. They found enough human remains to match 17 missing persons over 40 years. They did not find David Hernandez. They did not find any of the cult members. They did not find anything that could explain the images on the SD cards they recovered. Chin looks at his notes. Sarah and Tom insisted on their stories. Every detail matches. Both passed lie detector tests. Both are willing to testify. But no court will believe what they actually saw. So the official report will say, isolationist cult, possibly extreme survivalists, responsible for multiple murders. Suspects fled into the wilderness and presumably perished in the winter elements. Case closed. Chin walks to the edge of the clearing. Looks into the deep, dark forest. Somewhere out there he knows. Somewhere in that vastness. Something waits. Something watches. Something hungers. And when the next hiking season arrives, when hikers and campers return, he hopes they find what they are looking for. But he is certain that some of them will find something completely different. Chin turns to leave. Behind him, very far in the forest, something that might be wind through the trees makes a sound. Almost like chanting. Almost like hunger. Chin walks faster. This story is loosely based on real disappearances in the Smoky Mountains. The names have been changed. The details have been dramatized. But the fact remains. There are more than 400,000 acres of forest in those mountains. And every year people vanish. Most are found. Lost. Injured. Scared but alive. Some are never found. And when you are out there, miles from any other person, when the sun sets and the forest gets too quiet, you might ask yourself, who is really watching? The trail cameras? Or something else? Something that has always been there. Waiting. The end. If you like this story, leave a like and subscribe. And the next time you go for a hike, maybe bring more than just a flashlight. Stay safe out there. Or at least, try to.